I was genuinely very excited when Black Myth Wukong came out. Even my dad brought it up in conversation, which rarely happened. He knows that I like to play video games, so there's a personal reason for it, because Journey to the West was the book I ever read as a kid. I still remember my dad reading it to me, that playing that game was very sentimental to me. It could be the first TV series people watched together with families, and now they're like kind of reimagined on the global stage. I'm talking about this with teardrops in my eyes. We looked at a couple of studios and we realized the cash flow for like a typical online game is that you're gonna see your peak cash flow in like 12 months or 24 months at most, and then that cash flow stream will deteriorate and drop to a very low level. And even to hit that peak level cash flow, you just need to be really lucky, and the failure rate is very high. I believe what we are witnessing is not just the Chinese AAA games rising. I think what we are seeing now is China re-entering the global cultural stage with confidence, and that is not driven by any government campaigns. Black Myth Wukong and potentially Wuchang, these games can go viral on their own. Wukong wasn't a state project, Wuchang wasn't either, but it just resonated with the global players. That's a major shift, and it shows how we can organically attract global attention with our own cultural expression.
Welcome to Inside the China Room, the podcast show that puts you in direct conversation with China-based experts. I'm your host, Jiang. Today we are diving into China's fast-rising AAA gaming world. AAA games, typically defined as requiring a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of resources, are high-cost, high-quality, high-skill single-player titles. Last year, Black Myth Wukong, a domestically developed AAA video game based on the legendary Chinese novel Journey to the West, blew up worldwide, introducing millions of Chinese players to AAA games and giving the industry a moment of national pride. Building on that momentum, the much-anticipated Souls-like Wuchang Fallen Feathers launched on July the 24th and has sparked fresh debate about just how far Chinese studios can go. According to the 2024 China Game Industry Report, games developed in China generated about $18.56 billion in overseas revenue last year. Join me to talk about Chinese AAA titles and the gaming industry here is Jianlin, a Shanghai-based investor and avid AAA gamer. He has been in the banking and investment industry for over 10 years. Jianlin began his career at JP Morgan as an investment banking analyst, then moved to a major APAC-focused private equity firm. In 2024, he founded his own investment management business, making large-stake private investment, including buyouts, in fast-growing niche industry leaders. He focuses on new materials, data, and software segments that align with his investment thesis. Jianlin has also looked at investments in the gaming industry, and his hobby is playing video games when not at work. His favorite game is Elden Ring. Hi Jianlin, welcome to Inside the China Group.
Thank you for having me, and hello everyone.
Thank you. Great to have you on my show. I'm really looking forward to our chat today. Ever since I played Black Myth Wukong last year, I have become fascinated by AAA games. And I have already given our listeners, a quick intro to who you are. It sounds like we both spend quite a bit of our free time gaming. But before we dive into today's topic, would you like to tell everyone a little bit more about yourself?
Sure, but I think you gave a very good introduction already. I did banking and private equity for over 10 years, and I'm working on my own investment management business right now. I invest in small companies, but with large stakes or even buyouts. And I think I want to build the future champions in niche industries, and especially in China. That's my investment thesis. And I looked at game investments before, but I didn't make any investment. Later, I'll talk about it. I think games is a very hard sector to invest in, but in my free time, I do spend quite a bit of time playing games. And as you mentioned, my favorite game has been Elden Ring, but I spend a lot of time playing other titles as well. I think there's one thing I want to emphasize. I think the recent development in Chinese AAA games, that feels like a moment of redemption for me, because games were seen as bad in my youth times, or when I was younger, the games were seen as, wasting time, or, not very good for for young kids' studies. But I just feel that it's a moment of redemption because it's beginning to enter the mainstream in China and it's being appreciated by more and more people. I think it's really the nice art form or because of the deeply interactive way it engages with whoever plays with it. It engages with people to really think deeply about the aesthetics and the cultural elements in the game. So I think games should be taken seriously, and I'm very happy that a lot of people are taking games very seriously, much more seriously than before now.
Yeah, I mean, to echo that, I think the blacksmith Miss Wukong really, opened the door for lots of people, especially in China, to make people understand that actually playing game is not just about, you become addicted to something bad for you. It can be a way that you appreciate a country's culture, history, and the art is actually a type of art, as you just mentioned. So yeah, first let's talk about the newly released AAA game Wuchang for the Feathers. So we both had a chance to play it. Let me tell our audience a little bit about the game first. So this game is, I think, similar to like a historical fiction set in the Chu Kingdom of Western China during the late Ming Dynasty. It was filled with fantasy and the supernatural. There is a disease called ornithopy disease, known as the feathering. It will make human flesh sprout feathers, steadily twisting its victims into monsters. And the disease is sweeping the Sichuan land. And our protagonist, Wu Chang, is a warrior already touched by the feathering. I think she also lost her memory. And she fights to uncover her own identity. And she must also search for a way to help her creeping transformation. So that's, I think, mainly about the story. How would you describe the gameplay experience so far? What's the current feedback from Chinese players on this title? And how does it compare to the experience of playing Black Myth Wukong?
I'll be very honest here. I think to look at a Chinese player's feedback, you can simply log into Steam, the PC game portal, and look at the comments. The comments are not looking very good now, so that's kind of a backdrop. I just want to set the stage as well. I'm not an industry insider. I'm talking about this from an amateur gamer's perspective. My setup is pretty standard. I play AAA games mostly on PS5. So it's not cutting edge. I don't have cutting edge GPU, but I think it's decent machine to play on. In terms of how the game feels when I play it, I have to say first to give credit where it's due. Wuchang has some genuinely innovative gameplay mechanics. You can have this dodge timing with combined with instant kind of hard stroke, hard attack release. It allows for some very flashy combat if you get the rhythm right. You can tell what the developers were aiming for. It's similar to Wukong, but it's done in the context of unmistakably Souls-like games. I think it's definitely very innovative. It's like reading the novel and recognizing the writer's intent. So I can tell what the developers were aiming for. Even though the execution isn't perfect, I think the creative vision is there, and that really matters for me, especially in the early stage of AAA games in China. But to be honest, I just feel that the game's optimization needs some work. Performance-wise, I think the release feels a bit rushed for me. There are like frame rate issues. When I play on PS5, I see the graphics not very smooth. And then when I play some other better visual games, for example, there's a game called Doom from 1D or even Dark Souls Remastered. The game could be the graphics could be better and the movement could be more smooth. So I do think the optimization needs some work. Right now, I wouldn't recommend jumping right into the game. I'll say that maybe after a few updates, the game will get much better. But I do see a lot of potential because you remember Cyberpunk 2077 that started with the rocky launch, but then the studio turned into a master class. So I think if we given time and patience, Wu Chang can follow a similar path and give us better pleasant surprise down the road.
Yeah. I agree that there's still room for polish. I play a couple hours, and I think the game really has the real potential. But when I play it, the NPC interactions feels a little bit clunky. Sometimes you have to, stand, dead center in front of NPC, then you can trigger a dialogue. So it's kind of, not that smooth as you just mentioned. And, I'm still getting used to an action RPG where the protagonist can do a normal jump. I think you cannot do a normal jump in this game.
Right.
So it's not an issue, but I just need some time to get used to that. Because sometimes I want to jump, in the Black Myth Wukong. It's also important skill. And well, that said, I mean, the historical setting, to echo with you, I think the story is great. I mean, it makes me want to explore. And we know that the launch day for the game was a little bit rough. I think there are some distribution issues and there are some performance issues. And the developer has already issued an update on some of them. So as you just mentioned, I'm looking forward for them to keep update that. Actually, the Steam approval rate has climbed from about 28% to 42%. Of course, it's a long way from Black Myth Wukong, which, a positivity rate was 96%. And your favorite one, Elden Ring, was 93%. Actually playing, Wuchang remind me of my first week playing Black Myth Wukong. Back then, it felt as if the entire country was playing, the collective hype made the experience very special. And the Black Myth Wukong's art direction is gorgeous. Sometimes when I play the game, I can't help to admire the scenery. Sometimes just stop and look at the scenery because, the scenery is made very beautiful. And the bosses, I think the bosses in Black Myth Wukong are very cool. So I also like lots of bosses, Black Myth Wukong. So that make me wondering, because Black Myth Wukong came first and it was such a smash hit, do you think sometimes Chinese gamers put too much pressure or set too high expectation for Wuchang for the features? And maybe that's maybe not necessarily a fair comparison. How do you think about that comparison between Wukong and Wuchang?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I also think that it's not fair to compare every Chinese game, Chinese AAA game against the Black Myth Wukong. I think Black Myth Wukong is like a vanguard. It's like first of its kind. It also borrowed a huge legend, Chinese legend, the Journey to the West. So that's a lot of that. It has a lot of popular appeal as well. I think games like Wuchang and many other games that are yet to come will work on small niches in within the Chinese culture. I don't think it's I think it's a good continuation of a good trend set by Black Myth Wukong. It's just the Black Myth Wukong has achieved so much. It's not fair to compare every game against it. I do agree that people had very high expectations, but I just feel that it's not fair. It's a good game. Wuchang can become a good game in its own right, and I look very forward to play that game.
Yeah. And let's talk a little bit more about some other countries' game. The Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, and the Elden Ring, which is your favorite. I think both of these games are developed by one developer, and they are both critically acclaimed games that even won the Game of the Year awards. One is rooted in Japan's Sengoku era, the ninja folklore, and the other one is set in a magical world, which with I think European Western mythology. So how would you evaluate the quality, gameplay depth, and cultural impact of these two titles? And how do you compare the Black Myth Wukong with these two masterpieces?
So I just mentioned that I don't think it's fair to compare Wuchang with Wukong. And I also don't think it's fair to compare Wukong with these two games because, these two games were like Game of the Year. And to be fair, they are the production of a long lineage. That means before these games, the same company From Software, it had a lot of similar production of already Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring. So it's they practiced this formula and they mastered the art of this genre, I think. So it's really not fair to just compare this one single game with on the surface you are comparing two games, Elden Ring and Wukong, but at a deeper level you are comparing this one production with the whole series of production kind of concentrated into Sekiro and Elden Ring two games. Sekiro, I think in particular was groundbreaking when it first came out. It introduced a very new combat system. It's based on posture, deflection, and rather than stamina, the pure stamina and the bloodline level. So it's very innovative, and it was, I think it deserved the game of the year, not because, I think not because it was from the company called From Software. It was really good. So I just feel that these two games were like top of this genre. I think Wukong did a very good job already. It's just that we just don't want to do that comparison, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Well, talking about the combat system, I think Black Myth Wukong's combat system is really impressively well designed, especially for the beginners, for AAA games like me. And I think, its Best Action Game Award was well deserved. Just a heads up, when this episode drops, I will add the links to every game we mentioned on the show page so listeners can check them out for themselves. And now let's get back to Wuchang Fallen Feathers. As I introduced, the game is built around the culture of Fu, the ancient culture of China's Sichuan region, and the historical setting of late Ming Dynasty. Black Myth Wukong draws inspiration from the classic novel Journey to the West. Another upcoming Chinese AAA game, The Phantom Blade Zero in Jianlin, is said to be full of wuxia, like martial arts fantasy elements. As the Chinese gamer, when you play these games with rich Chinese cultural backdrops, do you feel that those Chinese elements are a major part of the reason you play it? In other words, does the incorporation of Chinese history, mythology, and aesthetics make the experience more attractive and or meaningful to you comparing playing other games?
Definitely. I was genuinely very excited when Black Myth Wukong came out. Like really excited. Even my dad brought it up in conversation, which rarely happened. He knows that I like to play video games. So there's a rare event which I treasure a lot because there's a personal reason for it. Because Journey to the West was the first ever book. I mean, in the comic version, was the first ever book I ever read as a kid. I still remember my dad reading it to me in bed and it showed me the comics, showed me the pictures. So playing that game was very sentimental to me, but I bet I'm not the only one in China. For many Chinese players, I guess even you included, Wukong taps into the deep collective memory. Not for me, it was the first comic book I read. For many others, it could be the first TV series people watched together with families. So these stories are what we grew up with, and now they are like kind of reimagined on the global stage, and that's very, very powerful. So I'm talking about this with teardrops in my eyes. So it's very excited. I was very excited. It was a very sentimental moment. Wuchang, I think it's based on Shu. I think to give some background to our listeners, Shu is like a Sichuan area together with some other areas around Sichuan, Southwest China, and it featured kind of a darker and a more folklore kind of background part of the Chinese culture. I have to say it's not mainstream Chinese culture. It's part of that very interesting Chinese culture. It's less familiar even for me and frankly more niche, at least in terms of what I guess most players, even Chinese ones, may recognize as representative of Chinese culture. But I'm not saying it as a criticism or to say it's bad. I think it's good. As I mentioned, Wukong was like the first in its kind, and the following Wukong, we're gonna see a lot of new titles coming into the stage, and I think it's very valuable. It provides the gamers and the opportunities to explore the unknown overlooked corners of our cultural heritage. I think that's something I really appreciate for the developers of the game Wuchang. I just again, I don't think it's fair to compare. I think that they're both valuable just in different ways.
Yeah, And well, back to the Japanese Wukong, I really think they reinvent the story of the journey to the West very well. So they actually added more elements to that, but keep I think the original element. So I think that was a beauty of that game. And for the Wuchang, I think it's about like the Sichuan province, as you just mentioned. There may be some different elements in that. I heard that the Sanxingdui, that was like part of the element, but I haven't saw that in the game. I haven't played longer enough. But I'm looking forward to see such type of things, which is actually, I think, a core element of Chinese culture. So maybe it takes some time to explore. And in China, the Blacksmith Wukong had a real breakout moment beyond just the gaming community. The game actually sparked interest in some real-world Chinese locations. For example, we draw attention to certain temples in Shanxi province that appear in the game, boosting tourism there. I remember at that moment, Shanxi province, the government, they also released some videos on Bilibili, China's maybe YouTube channels, introducing about the connection between the games and their historical places. So now Wuchang Fallen Feathers prominently features through culture, as you just mentioned, and is developed in Sichuan. Actually, I just checked that China's ambassador to Indonesia, Wang Wutou, recently gave a high-profile shout-out to Wuchang Fallen Feathers on his Twitter account, hailing it as the next heavyweight Chinese AAA title after Blacksmith Wukong. He added that the game's mystic setting draws on like Sanxingdui, as I just mentioned, and other Asian Chinese cultural elements. Do you think maybe we will see Wuchang spur interest in Sichuan's culture or tourism the way Blacksmith Wukong did for places in his game?
I think personally, yes. For me, when I play that game, you would also notice that people talk in Sichuan dialect. I think that's very interesting. Also all the Buddhas in that game and the sense, the Sanxingdui element and everything. I think I'm very interested in exploring more by myself to visit those places. But more broadly, honestly, I'm not sure, because for Wuchang to have the same kind of real world tourism impact that Wukong had with Shanxi, it probably need a much larger player base. For AAA video games, the first 7 days sales statistics in after launch is very important. So it would probably need a larger player base to have that effect. So right now that's still developing. We will see, but I think it's hard to say. But to be frank, I think that the more important question to me is that after Wukong is not just a one-time event. After Wukong, you have Wuchang, as you mentioned, you have Phantom Blade, and you may have like last year we had the 1, and this year we have 2 or 3, and next year we may have 5. So what's really important to me is that Wukong now has its successors, and a new era has begun, where more and more games like Wuchang will be able to spotlight different parts of China, whether that's Sichuan or somewhere else entirely. So before Wukong and Wuchang, we didn't have this kind of opportunity to present our culture in such a fun and immersive a way, because games are now becoming a new format of cultural storytelling. The players around the world, they are very open-minded. I think that's the good thing about spreading our culture in the gaming format, because the gamers, they're just very extremely open-minded. Games are not just passive representations. They allow the gamers to interact with our history, mythology, and aesthetics in a very emotional and engaging way. So I think Sichuan may or may not get more attention. They definitely got a lot of attention. I'm definitely planning my trip to Sichuan sometime soon. But the real win, I think, is that it is Chinese culture. We are entering, I think, an era where any place, I believe, in China could become the next kind of tourist attraction, that become the cultural backdrop for the next blockbuster title. I think that's the exciting part. So it could be Shanxi, it could be Sichuan. I'm from Liaoning. It could be Liaoning. I don't know. I hope it could be Liaoning, the next one. So that's something I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. At the end of the day, it's the sheer size of the player base that decides whether a game can really break into the mainstream. I remember chatting with a rideshare driver last year who told me he had finished the Blacksmith Wukong for 8 times. And then I asked him why so many playthroughs. And he said that it's one of the few things that he and his son can enjoy together. And he teaches his son how to combat some tough bosses. And if his son gets stuck, he will jump in to fight for his son. I think you also give some example about you and your father's head about this game. Yeah, and about the tourism, I think it still takes some time. But I really like your touch on the perspective that how the global gamers receive that such type of new games. I remember on the other day I was listening to another podcast on gaming industry from Sandal Season, another newsletter platform, Substack, and one guest speaker saying that nowadays the world order is kind of there are lots of chaotic things happens. You can see from some certain perspectives, people close doors to each other, decoupling type of stuff. But the gaming industry actually engage more and more different countries, people try different types of culture. So I think that's a really, really silver lining on that. But I really like that perspective. And actually, the Chinese game market is still dominated by mobile games. In 2024, China's game market generated sales revenue of 326 billion yuan, which is about 46 billion US dollars, with mobile games accounting for over 70% of that total. As an investor, how do you view the investment opportunities in China's game market given this landscape? Console and PC games, including the big budget AAA games, currently occupy a relatively small share in China, and developing AAA console PC games typically require a lot of long production cycles and significant budgets. So does this pose a high barrier and risk for investors? Can you tell us more about your story, why you didn't invest in the game centers after you look at it?
Sure. We looked at a couple of studios and we realized the cash flow for like a typical online game is that you're going to see your peak cash flow in like 12 months or 24 months at most. And then that cash flow stream will deteriorate and drop to a very low level. And even to hit that peak level cash flow, you're going to be, you just need to be really lucky, and the failure rate is very high. So for like large stake investment or, I worked at a PE shop for a private equity investment. It wouldn't make sense to take such binary, we would call it the binary risk. And I think that's even more so for AAA games. And I just want to be very clear. It's just my view that non-industry investors, if you don't have prior experience, if you're not insider, I don't think people should invest in AAA game studios. That's making art is one thing and making money is another. It's like filmmaking. Art is one thing. But you can't guarantee you're making every time you're making a Nolan film. Yeah, that masterclass kind of film. But against filmmaking, there are short form videos and other kinds of videos that are more easily commercialized. So it's similar kind of a similar trend in gaming as well. Making money is one thing, and making art is another. But that being said, as an investor, I think what I see from the rise of Chinese AAA games is I think the implication, the ramification is not necessarily on gaming itself, but because of something else, because of what it signals more broadly. I believe what we are witnessing is not just the Chinese AAA games rising. I think what we are seeing now is China re-entering the global stage, cultural stage with confidence, and that re-entering the stage is not driven by any government campaigns. Because Black Myth Wukong and potentially Wuchang, these games can go viral on their own. Wukong wasn't a state project. Wuchang wasn't either. But it just resonated with the global players. That's a major shift, and it shows how we can organically attract global attention with our own cultural expression. I think that's something I see a lot of potential in making money. Maybe not on gaming itself, but in a very broad array of areas that we can think of, and to have a huge potential to have good investment ideas.
Yeah, I think the gaming sector really inspire lots of people the way to tell China's story. And I just want to ask you a follow-up question about investment. As you just mentioned, maybe you are not going to invest on game studios, but if there is a game studio which has a connection with big tech companies like Tencent, does that influence your decision to invest into some studios? Even AAA game, as you just mentioned, you will not invest.
That's probably going to increase the success rate of that investment, but still, I view investment in games, if we don't do it in a portfolio way, if we just look at these investments standalone, I still think the binary risk is too high. If you really want to do investment and you want to increase your investment success rate, yes, the connection with big tech companies can be really helpful. But that doesn't solve the binary risk issue. You want to have a portfolio. You want to be an industry insider to know the ins and outs of that studio. You want to know the ins and outs the latest trend in that industry, which I'm honestly lacking. So I just can't comment too much on this. I think it's a job of industry insiders, but I do think there could be opportunities, and I think in the broad sense, some superstar studio or a few superstar studios will definitely emerge in China in terms of AAA game production.
Got it. I think you just mentioned about how the Black News Wukong and Wuchang make Chinese games being able to go overseas. What do you think about the opportunities and challenges for Chinese AAA games going global? I mean, what are the main hurdles in your opinion? And on the flip side, what advantages or unique opportunities might Chinese games companies have when they expand abroad?
I mean, firstly, I just from speaking from an anecdotal perspective, I have a few friends who work in the gaming industry, and I have to say, these are some of the smartest, the most driven people I know. So I'm not worried about industry talents in China. And I'm not industry insider again. But I think anyone who plays these games, new Chinese AAA titles, can sense that the talent is not lacking. I think you can definitely see the technical prowess and the capability from the Chinese studios. What I feel that could be challenging is perception for global players to be more receptive to Chinese titles. I mean, they are already very open-minded, but the perception, frankly, is that the Chinese studios, the Chinese AAAs, just follow existing genres. They just copy previous action or Souls-like games, the gameplay, and move it into their own games. That's the perception, and that's something I think only we ourselves can fix, because nobody's gonna fight for us because of the ingrained ways that people look at China. So what I personally really look forward to in the next stage of China's gaming going abroad to attract to have a larger global appeal isn't just better graphics or bigger budgets. I think it's original thinking. I want to see more bold, creative ideas with a deeper level of polish and refinement. I think take Wukong for example. I just finished another game. It's called God of War action game, and honestly, I think Wukong it's very innovative, but follows a kind of a similar action adventure formula of God of War. I'm not sure if the comparison is appropriate, but that's just how I feel. That's not a bad thing. It's actually great. Wukong is definitely, I think, top of this genre already. And the Wuchang, I think, is definitely Souls-like. Again, it's very respectable. I think it does a great job, but it's also derivative from an existing genre that From Software has been making for many, many years. So the question is, can we eventually create something that's truly innovative and the genre defining? I think, the Japanese gaming figure, I think his name is Hideo Kojima. he didn't just make games. He made a series of games called Metal Gears, and that series of games pioneered the stealth action gameplay. And recently, he made Death Stranding 1 and Death Stranding 2, and some people jokingly call it delivery simulator. But nobody can deny how original it is. So whether you love it or hate it, it's just the work of other. I mean, it's a voice. It challenges what a game can be. So I think I'm really looking forward to Chinese games being more original and have more innovative features to break the perception that we are just copycats of previous genres.
Yeah, I mean, when after I played the Black Myth Wukong, I played Elden Ring, which actually made me realize that how to appreciate Black Myth Wukong better, because I saw how Black Myth Wukong might get inspiration from the other two games. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, as you just mentioned, because Black Myth Wukong has its unique culture and story. And I think it also developed its own combating system, but also with some good reference of some already very successful games. So I just hope that the interactions between China and the Western gaming sectors can be more and more. And I think in the end, gamers in China and gamers in the rest of the world will benefit from these interaction or inspirations generated by each new game. And I also hope that one day maybe China can develop something like It Takes Two. I think that game is actually the best game that I have ever played in terms of designing and this very high quality game. Yeah, I think we just be patient and looking forward. Maybe we'll see more games in the future. And so actually, we end each our episode by asking our guests to recommend something to our audience. It can be a book, a TV show, a travel destination, anything at all. It can even be a video game. But so far, none of our guests have ever recommended a video game. So would you like to be the first one? Is there any particular game? I mean, you already mentioned lots of games today. But if I ask you to recommend a game to our listeners, what would you recommend?
Yes, I will be. I'm honored to be the first one to recommend a game on your show. The title is called Outer Wilds. It's not a AAA title. It's actually a very small independent game made by a tiny team. It's kind of a sci-fi game. The theme is to space exploration. There's no huge budget, no flashy graphics, no marketing push, but the experience it delivered was honestly very, very profound, even more profound than some of the AAA games I've played. So I just it's one of the very few games that gave me the feeling of all the wow factor when I played it. So I just don't want to spoil it. It's kind of a game that you want to play with a fresh mind. So I wouldn't want to spoil it. I don't want to talk about its kind of scheme too much. There's no leveling up. There's no map markers. It's just you're kind of very lonely creature in the space setting. You just explore it by yourself, but it's just kind of gave me a lot of the wow feeling when I play through. So that's something I think every gamer should try that game.
So what platforms is that game available?
I think it's available on almost every platform. I played it on PS, but I don't think I don't think it's limited to PlayStation.
Okay, I will find opportunities to give it a try. And as for my recommendation, I want to recommend a mobile title because I think it's easier for most of our listeners to pick it up. It's called Kingdom Rush. The series have several installments, and you can actually download it right from the Apple Store. It's a tower defense game, 塔防游戏. You can think about, the Plants versus Zombies, 植物大战僵尸. So it doesn't demand the lighting faster reflections, which is perfect for someone like me who isn't the most dexterous gamer. A single run only takes about like 20 minutes, making it, ideal for busy office workers. I would like to recommend that.
Yeah, I heard of that game. Sounds like a fun game.
Yeah. It's a fun game that you can play it with your spare time very easily, So.
Right. I'll try that on my cell phone too.
Cool. All right, I think that wraps up our episode today. We have touched on quite a few intriguing games, and I hope everyone can carve out a little downtime to dive in and enjoy them. Jianlin, I'd love to have you back on my show sometime in the future to talk about whatever new titles you are playing next. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to Inside the China Room. I really appreciate you staying with us till the end. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider following the show and leaving a quick rating or comment wherever you are listening. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners. I always love hearing from you as well, so feel free to email me at jjiang.sisu@hotmail.com with any thoughts, questions, or even ideas for future episodes. And if you found today's conversation helpful, please share the podcast with a friend who might enjoy it too. Thanks again for joining me. See you next time and take care.